every building in the school is so hot.
Yeah.
I just want every class to be outside for the next month. That would make me happy.
And it's beautiful out too, man. Like it
my
should
God,
be
yeah.
outside. Like it's windy. It's
amazing
like
out
to
there.
me the perfect weather is light jacket weather. There's wind. I feel
Yeah.
good. I'm not sweating like a hog. Like that's my
Yeah.
kind of weather personally.
I can do any kind of weather. Like I can survive like sub-zero and like boiling hot. But this is the weather I'm just like, yeah, you know, this is nice.
Yeah,
this
absolutely. It's one of those.
Yeah.
It's weather where you get up in the morning, you're like, damn, like, oh man, it's almost shorts weather. It's almost t-shirt
Yo.
and shorts weather, but like we're
Cannot
not
wait.
quite there yet. I like that transitional period. It's almost like fall. It's like
It's the opposite of fall.
how so?
So like it's getting warmer instead of getting colder. It's like
Yeah, it's like
opposite.
I like the transition from
Yeah.
summer to fall, and this is the transition from winter to spring. So it's kind of like that in between cold, hot kind of mix there. So it's
Yeah.
like I really dig it. But dude, I'm so happy to have you on the show today. Actually,
Yeah, me
for
too.
people that don't know, I met Mark. I would say what about a year ago in Talib's class, research techniques.
yeah, we were in research techniques. We didn't really talk that much. We were just sort of in the class, and then we did the VisCom class together, and we sat next to each other. We sort of helped each other out with our projects, and that was really fun.
Yeah.
And now we're here.
We're here. We're live in a living color. Yeah, Mark was one of those people that he was very close to the beginning of the show because I remember being next to Mark and Johnny Campbell, who's the reason, one of the biggest reasons I have this show. Shout out to
him.
Mr.
Yeah.
Campbell.
Cool.
I remember being like, "Oh, guys, you know, I'm starting my show in an hour from now," and Mark was one of the people next to me, encouraging me, and yeah, it was really cool. I always liked talking to Mark, and I was wanting to have him on here for a long time, so I was glad we found a subject that we both are knowledgeable about.
Huge horror fan, like that creepy stuff.
Yeah. Mark's very big into like the conspiracy theory type of horror. Like he also liked
It's all
Escape
real.
Room.
Listen.
I know you called me after you saw that.
Escape Room. The more I think about it, the more I hate it. But
Me too, and I didn't even see it.
It's a good movie that Sony touched.
Yes,
That's my synopsis of that.
that happens with a lot of Sony
Yeah.
movies. Slender Man was the same way. Apparently, Slender Man was like really R-rated, and then they just made it PG-13.
I enjoyed watching Slender Man, not because it was good, but because I went with someone who was terrified the whole time.
Really?
So I was just looking at her like, I'm
Was she afraid of like cartoons too?
She's one of those people that's like, if you make a scary sound, she's gonna get scared.
Wow, okay, she's one of those.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah.
Hey, fair enough. I respect it. I personally didn't think Slender Man was the worst movie I've ever seen. Like I thought,
know.
I'll say
It was on the IMDb top like worst movies.
worst 100
Yeah,
movies, right?
I would never put this up there with like The Room or Rubber or any of those like weird bad movies.
I would say yeah, it is definitely not that
No.
bad of a movie. Like I don't like it. For one thing, it had an atmosphere, which shocked
Yeah.
me. I was like stunned. I was like, this movie
Yeah.
actually has an atmosphere. Like,
I think that's mainly because it was based on something though, because
Yeah.
like if this was just Monster of the Woods, I think it would have been average. But because you know it's Slender Man, you know people are going to expect something. You have to put that bare minimum, and that's all they did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like they had the lore there. They had all the things there for them. The creepypasta
Yeah.
is the most legendary creepypasta.
The one thing I wanted to happen, they had a boyfriend in the movie. I didn't catch his name at the beginning, so I just pictured him in my head as the I forget the name of the creepypasta, but it's like the one with the smiley face. That's like
I know it's Ichi or Jeff the Killer.
Jeff the Killer.
Jeff the Killer.
And I was like, is that Jeff the Killer? Are we going to see Jeff the Killer versus Slender Man?
crossover?
I want that. I didn't get that.
Yeah, I'll be honest though, not a horrible movie. I would literally say it's a 5 out of 10. I think it was a passing movie. If it wasn't for some horrendous acting and at points a lack of plot, I thought it would have been a really good movie because it wasn't horribly directed at all.
The plot probably was there. It's just in the editing bay.
It's another movie that
disappeared.
Sony destroyed. Absolutely. They tend to do that a lot, especially I know you're a big superhero guy. They destroy a lot of superhero movies. The Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man 2, I know is a movie they dabbled in until it was nothing.
You saw that one?
I have seen the Amazing Spider-Man 2.
So you know the part when Gwen Stacy dies? And
Yeah.
I laughed at that. I shouldn't have laughed at that. But the way it was edited, it was just like noise, and then it felt funny to me. It wasn't supposed to be funny.
Yeah, I remember reading the comic of that, and it was so heartfelt of the image of Spider-Man holding her and her neck broken, and on below the bridge. I always thought,
You know what it is also? I don't think we've had a Spider-Man like on the big screen that could cry.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Tobey Maguire had that ugly crying face.
See, I would take Toby over any of them.
Really?
I like Toby.
I like Tom
Cheers
Holland.
to Toby.
No,
Tyler's with me. But Mark's like the toughest one on the
Tom
Gong
Holland
Show.
died for our sins. We have to be there for him.
Is Tyler going to comment?
Yeah, I'm gonna comment.
Yes, I want to hear this. What's he got?
I want to make sure I'm not like blasting and making the echoes. All right.
You're
Oh, you're good.
All right. How's everybody doing today?
Wonderful.
Great. Let's get into this. Mark.
Yes.
No, I'm not. Okay. I do like Tom Holland. And I do like him in Infinity War, and I was heartbroken when he died. Like, that whole thing was just kind of like, WTF.
Like losing your child.
Yeah. But I mean, like, Tobey Maguire will always kind of be like the OG because he's like
Yes.
the classic. That's what you
I
wore.
think that's just because of the way that movie was structured. Because
Yeah.
that was like the perfect just movie. It had like scene of the good guy at the beginning, scene of the bad guy at the beginning. Now the good guy's getting a little
Sam
better.
Raimi.
Then
Sam
the
Raimi's
bad
a great
guy's
storyteller.
Getting a little better. And then they clash, and you realize the bad guy was a little better and beat Spider-Man. And I feel like just the way that movie was structured and put together was perfect. And that's a lot of the love behind it. But I would just rather see him as the high school kid.
Fair.
I
Yeah.
feel
Okay.
that.
Yeah, I think they did kind of bypass that. Like, you saw a snippet of him in the
Yeah.
high school life, but
He's-
you was still a little older, so it's kind of just like, yeah.
Tobey Maguire is a perfect like college Spider-Man. If they wanted to start from college, but yeah.
I'll be honest, I dig those movies a lot more than the Amazing Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I was
and,
about to say, like,
no,
are we
those
just
are-
completely
those aren't
bypassing
good
Amazing
movies.
Spider-Man?
I think those movies are terrible. Like, I thought the first one especially, I was just like, why redo the origin? Like, why? Like,
I thought the first one was okay, just because
well, the second one's a lot worse, but that's because
Yeah,
of Sony.
yeah. No,
I don't know if I blame the filmmakers as much as I blame
I'm
the
not.
company.
I'm not sure if they had the same problems as they did with Spider-Man 3, because in Spider-Man 3,
Spider-Man 3.
Sam Raimi wanted to do just Sandman,
Yeah.
and then Sony came in like, nah.
We need Venom.
You're doing Venom. So they forced him to do all of them together, which is why that one was basically subpar.
It was overkill. That's what it
And
was.
I wonder if I'm not sure if that's the same thing that happened to Spider-Man 2, because he had who'd you have in that one?
Electro and the new
Electro,
Goblin.
Rhino, and New Goblin or whatever.
Overkill again.
Yeah.
You only need one villain, two maximum. That is it. You do not need more than two villains in a goddamn movie. If you have more than two,
It depends. You can't have them all be the same, like spotlight wise.
well, I know. My friend Brian loves this movie as well. I know you're a proponent of Batman Forever, and I love that movie. That's my favorite Batman movie. 'Cause I know you're a Carrey mark. I know you're a Jim Carrey mark.
Yeah. It's I was gonna use that as an example, but yeah, that's just a fun movie.
That's a great, like, that's how you do two supervillains, because at the beginning it's Two-Face, and then you learn the origin story of the Riddler, and then they get together, and the scene in in his lair where half of it's like nice and the other half is not. He goes, "It's so you and yet so you." Like, oh my god, man, those two
Oh
together
my
were
God.
so damn funny. I don't get why that movie gets so much hate. I think it's because Batman and Robin is so bad.
I think it's just because like when it came out.
Yeah.
So you just came off of Batman Returns. What was that one?
Batman Returns with Danny DeVito
Yeah,
was the one.
that one was
before it.
really dark. That one was just like
It was such a tonal shift. You went from dark to
Adam West.
yes,
And you kind of just have to look at them as Adam West movies.
yeah, because that's what Bam Pow, like that's what the Adam West cartoon was, or not the cartoon, the live action show was.
Yeah.
and that's why I don't get why that movie in particular. They're like, oh, well, Two-Face wasn't serious enough.
Listen,
I'm like,
people-
who cares?
People
It's
are
Tommy
going
Lee
to
Jones.
be grown men complaining about comics till the end of time. You just got to realize that there's stuff for kids, there's stuff for adults. It doesn't.
Hey man, I saw that movie when I was a kid, and I still love it to this day.
Yeah.
Batman Forever. I cheered Batman Forever, and I know Mr. Brian
It gets an
Blight.
approval here.
Yes, absolutely. It is. It has my stamp of approval. It is one of my favorite superhero movies of all time. But
Yeah.
all right, enough tangents here. Enough small talk. Let's get to the main event of the evening, the course. And listen, man, we're talking about one of my favorite all-time shows here today, and I'm pretty excited. I don't know
Mine
about
too,
you.
Yeah, great show.
It's the original The Twilight Zone series, and we'll get into some of our favorites, least favorites, underrated gems, overrated. We'll be talking all about that for the next hour or so. So sit back, relax,
Strap
ease the
in,
seat
guys.
back. But First of all, I want to get into a little bit of the new series because I've seen the Jordan Peele episodes, the first 2 at least.
As am I.
And I want to talk a little bit about that because that's like the new latest thing that's going on around the genre before Pet Sematary and before Child's Play. These remakes come out. The Twilight Zone and Us are really the big topics right now. So Jordan Peele is really all over the genre. I mean, he's on television, the biggest thing going on in the genre, and in movies, Us is the biggest horror movie out right now. So he's all over this genre. It's pretty insane.
Yeah, especially just like the shift from pure comedy to pure horror. I don't think anyone has ever really done that and had been that successful.
You're right, because it's not an easy transition to make because essentially what you're doing is you're going from I'm trying to make people laugh at me, and everybody knows how subjective comedy is, and then going to the genre of horror where it's the same thing. Some things I don't find some things scary like other people do. It's all subjective. That's the same thing as comedy.
What's your like ideal scary situation in a movie then? What's like your basis?
Well, I can name horror movies that terrify me. I think Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer is one of the scariest movies ever made. It's from The Walking Dead. What's his name? Not
Lincoln?
Earl. Earl's brother. In The Walking, I can't remember the actor's name. I'm so sorry.
Was that the one that was in Guardians of the Galaxy?
Yes. I can't think of his damn name.
The really southern guy.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't think of his damn name. But all right, I apologize for not remembering his name.
This is why Google is a thing.
Yeah. I'm gonna shoot later when I find out his name. I'm gonna just like want to kill myself. But Tom Towles is also in it as a sidekick. I remember the sidekick's name, but not the lead. But man, that is one of the scariest movies of all time because it is the realest depiction of a serial killer.
Really?
And I just think like it's scary because people like that exist. Also, the original Maniac with Joe Spinell, he plays this serial killer who he seduces women and scalps them. And he has all these mannequins in his house, and he puts their scalped heads with wigs on these mannequins and talk to them like they were but he's like, don't give me crap, all right? I'm just trying to take you out and have a good. One of the scariest goddamn movies of all time, in my opinion. Those two. I think
I'm taking notes down.
I think the realer you get with me, the more where I can go, that could really happen. That really grinds my gears. 'Cause, I mean, there are certain other movies too that creep me out. The original Halloween creeped me out. There are movies that are far-fetched that creep me. I think Martin is a creepy film. There's so many. But how about you, man? What scares you?
My taste for horror is putting real people in an absurd situation and seeing how they change. So, like, my favorite horror movie is Cube. Just because
that's a great movie.
Every one of them is just, you don't know anything about them. They don't know anything about themselves. Everyone has their sort of like ideals and just morals. And by the end of it, everything changes. You don't know who you become at the end of it just because you're trapped in this box. And it changes you. And then at the end of it, you don't know what to do. I like that sort of, that hero's journey of completely losing yourself in the horror, in just the situation, and then
the confinement.
Yeah. So like things like the Cubes, Battle Royale, Hunger Games to an extent.
Yeah.
What was the James Gunn movie that came out a couple years ago? The one where they're in like the office building and it locks down.
Oh, the Belko experiment.
Belko, love Belko. Something like that, where it's just like any person on the street could change at any moment if the situation lines up. Should be worse than any serial killer.
Yeah, I think it's the fun of those movies. The reason those movies are so damn entertaining is because you're trying to figure out how would I get out of this.
Yeah,
like with Cube,
and even with that, you don't know what you're gonna do. No, like
absolutely.
I sit through those movies like, yeah, I'd be the guy that does the right thing. Like, probably not.
Everybody sits there and points a finger, and everybody knows that hindsight is 20/20. But like when the chips are down, I have actually written a short story about that. I would love to send it to you.
I have too, and I guarantee yours is better than mine.
Oh, well, thank you. Hi, Francine.
Hello.
My story is called Down by the Bay, and it's basically the premise is this girl who she does not believe in any of the horror tropes. Like she bashes all these movies. She says, "Oh, let me guess, this idiot girl is going to look back," you know, because the main rule, don't look back, don't look back. And then when she's put in the situation, she ends up looking back. And like that, I always loved the genre for that because that's genius, because that's like, you can be all tough and say how smart you are, but when the chips are down, sister, you're just as dumb as these characters that you bash.
Like we want to be like, to use the example of Cube, we all want to be like the Quentin of the group, the one that stands up like, this is what we're gonna do. But I know I'm going to be worth in that situation. Just in the corner like, Yeah, there's no hope. I'm just gonna be sad.
And it's I think it shows a great deal for our character to be able to admit that. A lot of people are ignorant and would never admit it. I'm not that. I wouldn't do that.
I wouldn't
yes,
say
you would. I
wouldn't say ignorant as much as they just don't know yet.
Yeah.
I feel like if God forbid that situation happens to someone, once
the Velcro experiment.
Once they transition, they're not gonna be like, oh, I'm sad now. Like during it, they're just gonna like roll with it because that's human nature. We adapt like that, and we don't care.
That's very true. But getting into the Twilight Zone episodes, the new Jordan Peele Twilight Zone episodes, man, what were your initial thoughts? I know we both watched both of them, and I think we both felt the same, but about different episodes.
Yeah. So I hated the first episode from the first line.
The comedian.
Kamal Nanjiani?
Yes.
That's his name? Yeah, I hated it from the first line out of his mouth just because I don't like him as a comedian. I know he can be good and he can be funny, but when he goes into what his character is going into, that mode of like, I need to have the message, I need to do that, and he puts that before the comedy, I'm just immediately turned off by that.
Yeah.
So having that be the first line and have it be something so polarizing as that political topic, I'm just like, okay, I'm already stepping back. I'm going to be a little more critical now, and it just got me in that mindset.
It was the opposite of a hook. Instead of a hook, they pushed you away.
Yeah. And it's a shame because the concept's really good. You want to explain the concept of each?
Yeah. So basically, I honestly, for the first one, I can understand how you hated it. I know a lot of I've read a lot of negative goddamn reviews for it. The only defense I can have for it, I'll get into that. But basically the premise is the lead character Samir is the character's name in the episode.
Yeah.
He's like this struggling comedian. He's got a good like family life, his girlfriend, all this stuff. His nephew, he's very close with.
He's got a dog named Cat.
It's basically it's a wonderful life for like he has a good home life, but like in the real world he struggles and stuff. He's a struggling comedian, and one night after he does a terrible set, he runs into Tracy Morgan, and Tracy Morgan's character says, "Listen, I'm going to make you one of the best comedians ever, but you're going to have to be willing to sacrifice everything." And he's like, "Listen, dude, I'm desperate. I'm willing to sacrifice everything." And then as the episode goes on, whoever he talks about in his sketches ends up going missing. And right off the bat,
I don't think it was going missing. It was like they were completely just out of reality.
Unexisting. Yeah. Erased from existence, I should say. And like, I thought personally that theme, that storyline felt very much like the original series.
It's a great premise.
A great premise.
Yeah.
But my problem where I found fault with it was way too goddamn long. 55 minutes, you could have told the same story 45? In 25 minutes and just drove the same point home, same message, same everything. Yeah. And I think it would have really worked.
It wasn't even that. It was that the examples were the same. So the progression of his character was the first thing when he realizes he has the power, he talks about his nephew. Or I think it was the dog first.
I don't remember.
It's not that. It was the dog. He talks about the dog. Then it's
his nephew,
and then the
coworker
who was drunk, and they had to say he killed some people at the last second to make him seem more.
Absolutely. So we wouldn't feel sympathy when he got like
and
that was
and then
stretched.
it just kept going with the same thing. I think it should have stopped at the coworker, where it just like to have the magic rule of 3. You know
even that, I felt like it was too long. Like it was just like it reminded me of like a season 4 episode of the Twilight Zone. For those of you who don't know, season 4 of the Twilight Zone was the only season where they went for hour-long episodes.
Just like mini movies.
And it was like the worst season because they had great concepts that were written for a 25-minute episode, and they were like, we got to stretch this out another half hour, and then you have padding upon padding upon padding, and that's when the episode. Yes, was it a good episode if it had been shorter? Absolutely. I think the comedian was actually the better of the two, but it was just way too long.
Do you think that was a studio thing, or do you think that was like the writers saying, I just want to keep writing?
With season 4 or with these new episodes?
Because this is online. This is with the CBS All Access.
Yeah, and it's on YouTube for free, this episode.
The first episode, is the other one on? I didn't check.
Adam Scott one's on CBS.
Yeah. So I know, especially with online entertainment, there isn't really like a defined, this is where you have to end the episode.
True.
So do you think it was like a studio thing that says, hey, go for whatever you want? Or do you think that writer was just like, I'm going to keep writing and no one said no?
I would assume it might have been the writer because the Adam Scott one was like 37 minutes. The rest of them, and I looked, the rest of them are all going to be an hour about.
I don't think the Adam Scott one was that long for the premise. I feel like it had enough material in there for that one. But this one didn't seem as fleshed out, or they didn't flesh it out enough. or they just kept doing the same examples over and over.
They
again.
did the same thing for 40 minutes, and then you got to the inevitable ending where, spoiler alert, he talks about himself and he disappears from existence. And then his other coworker, this girl who's like a lesbian, she start talking to Tracy Morgan at the end of the episode. And
She has more of a character than that, by the way. I just want to.
Dude, that was all her character was. She was like the wisecracking lesbian
she was just the wisecracking one. I just remember at the end of the episode, she's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm a lesbian." I'm like,
she says at one point to him, she's like, if you were a chick, I'd bang you. And I was like, really? Like, that was out of left field.
I think it was like, if I was straight,
yeah,
I would bang a Denzel Washington type and then go for you.
Yeah, just some of the. I thought
that was funny.
Yeah, I just think it was just way too padded. Like, you could have got to the same conclusion.
Yeah.
It reminded me of The Dummy. And there actually are Easter eggs in these new ones as well. It reminded me a lot of The Dummy.
Was there any Easter eggs for other stuff in this one? Because I noticed it in the Adam Scott one. I didn't notice any.
There were Easter. The point where he sees her in the waiting room, you could see Willie the Dummy in the corner from the Dummy episode with Cliff Robertson, who went on to play Uncle Ben in the Sam Raimi Twilight Zones. I mean,
it all
the Sam Raimi
full
Spider-Man.
circle.
It does. It does. From the Twilight Zone to Sam Raimi Spider-Man is absolutely incredible. But yeah, I don't know. I thought the premise of that one was good, and then it was just too long. Whereas the Adam Scott one, I'll be honest, it did not feel anything like a Twilight Zone episode to me. It felt very, like, I would say more Tales from the Crypt or even Tales from the Dark Side more than the Twilight Zone. I think that was my biggest problem with it. It was probably more entertaining.
Yeah, I know I already told you this. I think I like this one better than the original one with William Shatner.
Yeah.
And the reason is because of the time limit. Mm-hmm. Because in the original one, it's just, he looks guy on a plane. There's a guy on the plane, and then he turns around, nothing there.
The gremlin,
and that's fine for like in 1916's entertainment. I understand why that's one of the most popular episodes. I understand why that's there. But in the new one, so the premise of the new one is
basically the same thing.
It's kind of the same thing, but it's different. Adam Scott's character, he's an investigative reporter, and he's going to some country to do some investigative reporting, basically. And while he's on the plane, he finds a little MP3 player with 2 podcasts on it, and they're talking about on the podcasts how the plane that he's on is going to go down. And he's listening to the podcast throughout the episode, trying to figure out what he can do to stop it, how he can intervene. But once again, spoiler alert, he ends up being the reason that all of this is happening. And it's a great Adam Scott moment when he lets the guy onto the cockpit. The cockpit, yeah. And from the information in the podcast, and he just goes, "Oh, he's the pilot."
Yeah. I honestly, I thought that episode was not the greatest. Yeah. I know that for whatever reason, that one seems to be the one that's getting more praise of the two.
I think it's just because 2 episodes were released. A lot of people didn't like one. People like the other one more. They want to praise Twilight Zone, so they're just giving the praise to the second episode.
Yeah, it's funny, and I think like if you're a fan of the original series, like a lot of these so-called experts and writers that write all these reviews, they're like, this is a reminiscent of that. I'm like, yo. Nothing in the Adam Scott one felt Twilight Zone-y to me. I think the comedian, that felt like a Twilight Zone episode.
Do you want this to feel like Twilight Zone, or do you want this to be just like another sort of suspense anthology show?
I think it should feel like the Twilight Zone. You're calling it the Twilight Zone. You have an opening and closing narration. You're going to have social commentary because Jordan Peele cannot sleep without social commentary. He literally is incapable of concluding anything without it.
Kamal Nanjiani tweeted when the episodes went live, complaining about that, about people saying, basically real fans of the Twilight Zone saying that the original never had social commentary.
It did.
But I think at least with his episode, I don't think there's a lot of social commentary in the Adam Scott one, except for maybe don't try to help if a plane crashes.
I think there were some other things in there, but I don't want to get into that because then it gets political, and I don't want to get I hate politics. So did Rod Serling, just for the record.
I think it has to be well thought out. You can't just blam, 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 I believe this, and end it there, and then go on with the plot. It has to be woven in with the plot, and it has to make sense.
Yeah, and I like all right. I'm not against social commentary. Obviously, George Romero is one of my favorite filmmakers of all time. Rod Serling is one of my favorite writers of all time. A lot of Twilight Zones had the social commentary. The difference is the ones that did not, they were damn entertaining. Same thing with Romero's films. Is there the commentary of consumerism and Dawn of the Dead? Absolutely. That's not the main reason I like that film. I like that film for the gore, for the action, for the characters, for Ken Foree, for the friendship between him and Scott Roniger. I mean, there's 100 things to like in that movie. It's a comic book movie in a mall with people battling the undead. That's why I love that movie. I don't love that movie for the social commentary, and the social commentary does not get in the way of the movie being entertaining on its own two feet.
And plus, once you find a movie entertaining, you watch it over and over again, and that's when you uncover, oh, there's a little bit more to this movie. There's
Absolutely.
There's something behind it. Maybe I can rethink my previous views. You can't just bash someone over the head with the same concepts over and over again and expect change without like them getting annoyed.
Absolutely, and I think Jordan Peele has a lot of good ideas, and I like him. Listen, I'm thrilled that somebody came to the genre of horror and said, "Listen, I want to make something original." My hat goes off to him like none other. My only thing is, I just think sometimes his politics get in the way of his films or shows or whatever being entertaining. That's my problem with Jordan Peele. I like the guy. I just think he can be so much better if he doesn't let it get in the way.
I'll disagree with you on that because I think that they don't get in the way with it. I can like I said before, watch it, get entertained, and then think about it. I don't think it's that in the way. The only thing I can really see what you're talking about is with the Key and Peele sketches, and that's for comedy. Like that's the nature of that show's comedy, and I love that. I don't think there's one Key and Peele sketch that isn't funny, like a little bit to me.
The only reason I say is because like if you look at a movie like Get Out, it really like if that movie did not have social commentary in it, it would just be passed off as another BS horror movie, blah 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 blah. With the social commentary, all of a sudden now it's Oscar worthy. Now it's winning Best Original Screenplay. I just don't appreciate like the Oscar people, like a movie like It Follows got totally overlooked because this has nothing to say about anything.
No, wasn't It Follows like an STD thing?
Yeah, but it's like I'm saying like a movie like that gets passed over because of its social commentary is not seen from the public as most. What
you're saying is like people like have like the hierarchy of what social commentary is important.
Absolutely.
I get that.
I think that's what it was. I think it was a fine movie, but Oscar worthy? I don't know. Well, but, hey, people enjoyed it. So.
I don't think the Oscars is really like the end all be all of what's a good movie.
Very true.
It's just a lot of that is very just like marketing. Like, hey, here's like $1 billion. Do you want to see my movie and maybe give it the golden thing? And it's just if a movie wins an Oscar, I'll be like, oh, that's cool. And if it doesn't win, I'll be like, yeah, that's all right.
Yeah, I totally see where you're coming from. But yeah, man, I'm glad that you enjoyed the Adam Scott one. And honestly, I'm not judging. It's hard to judge a new series by 2 episodes. Listen, I think there are some bad original Twilight Zone episodes too. So what's that?
The rule. I think it's a new rule. Like you have to watch like 3 episodes of show to really get the idea. I will see them all and then I will make my final assumption. Like, I'm not going to be one of those guys that just says, oh, it's crap because the comedian was too long. The comedian was too long, but like, I'm not judging the rest of them for that. I think that's grossly unfair. Yeah, of course.
And listen, I think the comedian has some potential. It had a good concept and it had that old feel. And I think honestly, with a guy like Jordan Peele behind it, I think that show could go far. We'll see. Only time will tell, but, dude, we've been talking about this for about a half hour. I want to get into the original series.
All right, original spoops. Okay, let's go.
Let's do it, my friend. All right, so the original series, The Twilight Zone, my favorite all-time television show.
Really?
By a mile, absolutely by a mile. I have to credit my father for this. I grew up watching these. Every 4th of July and every New Year's Eve they show.
Same. I used to watch these all the time with my mom on New Year's Eve.
Yes. They show the marathon of them on Sci-Fi Channel.
It's one of those things where like I feel like everyone grows up with the context of this in like our generation. I don't like to say our generation, but it's like, black and white is boring. But like my parents sat me down to watch this show and it's like, what? This is entertaining. This is good, but it's black and white. What?
Yeah.
And then you start to realize, wait, just because something's old doesn't mean it's bad.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, so like going back to the history of the show, like before, like when the show was just a concept, Rod Serling actually was trying, this is crazy, he was trying to write comedies, like comedy plays.
Really?
And yeah, he wrote one called The Time Element, and they thought it was really funny. And they were like, this is really funny, but I feel like I feel like you have nothing to say other than just slapstick, This is what the reviews told him. And he said, what if I could make this serious, say something about it, and entertaining, and maybe switch genres? And he thought, why don't, if there's any genre where you can be imaginative, where you can plug yourself, where you can kind of take the abnormal and make it into something connected to something from the real world, he said, I'm going to do that. And hence the Twilight Zone concept was born. And I mean, I just think it's one of the great shows of all time. It's my favorite. I absolutely love it. And I can remember watching these with my dad over and over and over again on New Year's Eve and stuff, man. Just an enjoyable ass show, man. Just it's a great time for anybody. I recommend this to even non-horror fans because it's always something that you can take and see.
Yeah.
And
I would say it's not really like horror fans. This is like if you're a fan of like suspense and that sort of drama.
It's horror sci-fi, I would say.
Yeah, but I feel like most of them are more on like the suspense side to things, and that's the horror I gravitate to.
Yes.
It's nothing like you're not going to see limbs flying off everywhere.
Not going to see severed hands or anything.
Those are going to be off screen.
It's certainly not a slasher series or anything like that. But man, there's so many episodes I love. I would love to run it through some ones we love.
Yeah, you want to do like a back and forth? Like
let's do it. Yeah, man. You're my guest, so the guest picks first. Episodes. Let's do episodes we loved, and then maybe we'll get into ones we disliked.
So you sent me a list of just like 20 random ones, and that's what's the ones that are fresh in my mind. So I'm going to gravitate towards those.
Excellent.
5 characters trying to escape.
5 characters in search of an exit. One of my all-time favorite episodes as well.
Back to what I said about why I like horror. Just putting 5 people in the room that know nothing about the situation. Basically, was it a colonel?
A major, ballerina, clown, bagpiper, and a hobo.
We're gonna get into the hobo because I have problems with the hobo.
Yeah, that's a plot hole. I agree.
I wouldn't say it's a plot hole. I think it's just someone who has horrible taste.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. So they're all in this metal container, and none of them know why. The major is a new member to this sort of group. All the other ones have tried to escape already, and the major still has hope. And the clown of the group is just like making fun of him the whole time for trying. And I think it's nice to like have like the pessimistic character and like the overly ambitious character clash together, and just everyone around them just trying to like stay calm.
I think yeah. And the reason that this episode really works is because, for one thing, you look at the setting. They're in a cylinder the entire time.
Feels dynamic.
It does. It has it is depth to it.
When he wakes up, all you see is him, and then you see the clown, and then you see the rest of one. I'm still boggled by how he didn't notice everyone.
It's almost dreamsically directed. Yeah. Like it's very like I don't know if I've ever seen another. Not even just a Twilight Zone episode, but anything that had this feel to it. Like I remember feeling kind of chills when I first watched this episode.
Because you would start to agree with the clown. There is no hope. There's no getting out.
Yeah, and I like they go through all the possibilities. We're in hell. Maybe this is limbo. Maybe we pissed somebody off in a past life.
Maybe I think they said UFOs at one point, right?
Yeah, they go through every possibility because us as the viewers, we're trying to figure it out too. And it's one of those episodes where you can never match the first time you watched it. We briefly discussed this.
Yeah. This is a perfect introduction. So like if you've never seen the Twilight Zone and you have a friend who has seen the Twilight Zone, watch it together because your friend is going to be there like, oh, he doesn't know. Oh, yep. I know. And you're going to be like, what's happening? Yeah. And it's just one of those shows. It's so fun to like see someone's first reaction to what it's about.
Absolutely. I actually just recently watched this with my good friend Xavier and Nick. And they had neither one of them had seen it before, and they were kind of the entire time looking, and then by the end they were just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like I don't want to spoil it, but there is a line. This is a partial kind of, not really spoiler. There's a scene where the major finally cracks and he's crying. He's like, "We're never gonna get out of here. Like we are trapped." And the ballerina walks over to him, who I think does a really good job at being almost emotionless. Like her face never changes.
Yeah.
And once you know the twist,
Once you know, it makes sense.
it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And she goes, listen, you know, perhaps we are the unloved. Perhaps that's who we are. And like,
Which is kind of the right answer.
yeah, it's kind of, that's why I say kind of a
Yeah.
spoiler, kind of not. But when I first, and rewatching the episode, I'm like, I get
Yeah.
chills at that point. I think
And-
that's just a phenomenal line.
Without getting to the spoilers, whoever put that hobo in there, stop it. Where did you find him?
yeah, that is a good question.
And why?
I agree. I concur 100% with you. That is ridiculous. However, the first time I saw this, I
it's
nearly
great-
crapped my pants from the twist. I think it's a brilliant
great
twist.
I think having him there is a great the roll off, because even
Yeah.
if you could figure out what's happening, that character's there and like, no one would ever do that.
Absolutely. But 5 characters in search of an exit. I give it the full recommendation. I think it is the perfect episode to start with.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. I agree. I think it's the perfect the launch pad for this series. Like an episode where you're like, I've never seen it. Which one should I watch? This one. Like absolutely unequivocally. It has everything that made this series great. The suspense, the story, the twist, the acting, the direction, everything, atmosphere, everything. It just hits it nail on the head. So it's a fantastic episode. Going into one of my personal favorites, I always really liked The Howling Man. I don't.
So-
did I send you that one?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
I just want making sure.
So if you haven't seen it, but you've seen the 2009 Wonder Woman movie, it's the same concept.
I never thought of that. That's a good one. Basically, the premise is this man one night he's walking in the rain. He's trying to get home in the rain, and he's
It's,
all disoriented.
after World War One, I think it was. He was trying to get home from a war.
I think it's after World War II. They
Okay.
say. He's getting home from the war. He's all disoriented. He stumbles upon this church, and he says, "Can I please stay the night?" And they say, "No, you can't stay the night. Now leave."
No.
And he says, "Why can't I stay the night?" And throughout this whole episode, you hear this howling. Woo! Like howling, and it's
Yeah.
creepy. And
That actually annoyed me, the way they reasoned it off. It's like, oh, you got a dog? No. Just say you have a dog. He's not gonna care.
exactly. And I think and basically they tell him, listen, you can't stay here because we're holding somebody captive. And he says, who are you holding captive? And he says, the devil himself.
Dun, dun, dun.
And basically they're holding
with the lightning too, crashing.
Yes. And they tell him that they're holding the devil in captivity. And always something about this episode just creeped me out was the back and forth between. It's almost the proverbial angel devil conversation. This whole episode is.
Do you let that beast out?
Yeah, the devil, let him out, and don't let him out. And it's this back and forth. And I think why I resonate so much is because we've all been there in our lives where we second guess. Should I do this? Should I listen to my morals? Should I listen to this side? Should I listen to that side? Should I make this decision? And it's the ultimate, what do I do?
Would you let him out? And if you do let him out, can you put him back in?
Exactly. And I think that always just terrified me. And the back and forth between the guy and the supposed devil. He said, listen, they locked me up in here for kissing a girl. He's trying to make
wrong.
it.
Don't kiss before marriage. Stop it.
No, don't do it before you hitched, baby. He says to him, he tries to make them sound like they're uptight, crazy Christians.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's realistic. Like, there are crazy, uptight, realistic people like that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I thought, like, if I was hearing that and I was like, damn, like, I don't know now.
And then you hear the other guy's side of the story, which in retrospect is unbelievable, but he says, like, I was traveling the world trying to find this man. I finally found it. Once you get to my level of understanding, you know what to look for.
Exactly.
And I thought, it was like, do I believe him or do I not believe him? I don't know anymore.
I love that second guessing. And I mean, yeah, can you call the twist? Absolutely, you can call the twist. I'm not saying that you can't. I just like that conflict, that personal conflict. And I love that he mentions, he says, wherever there was hate, wherever there was war, wherever there was famine, that was the cause of him, saying that the devil was the cause of everything. And now that they have held him dormant, there has not been world war, there has not been famine, there has not been any catastrophes worldwide. And I always thought, what an interesting concept.
How long was he locked up in there, did he say?
He said 5 years.
And he just got out of a war?
He did.
So the war was going on?
Well, the war had ended. They're 5 years removed from the war.
Oh, okay.
They're saying that once World War II ended, the war ended because they captured the devil.
I didn't catch that line, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I always thought, wow, that's, I mean, is it far-fetched? Absolutely. But That's the fun of it. And again, atmosphere, the creepy rain in the background. Is he the devil?
Yeah.
Is he not the devil? The Serling narrations, just phenomenal stuff, man. I think it's a
Great.
creepy ass episode.
Yeah, I agree. It's awesome.
Yeah, and also another one. This is not spoiling the ending or anything like this, but I think the final scene of this episode, it actually does not involve a character that has any dialogue or any lines or anything.
Oh, is it okay to say
There's
that?
a woman.
The maid? Was it a maid?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a point where he thinks he has recaptured the devil, and he tells this woman, this housekeeper, he says, "Whatever you do, you're going to hear howling. Don't open the door. Just don't do it." And the last thing you see is her opening the door. And Serling says, there's a saying that you can catch the devil, but you can't hold them long. And just, my God, it's just so creepy.
Cycle continues
She
again.
opens the door, and it's just darkness. You don't see the devil. You don't see anything.
That would be a good episode for the remake, showing her story after that, and like going to like whoever that gets to replay the guy from the episode, like, I'm sorry I did this, and like, oh, I told you.
Yeah,
I think
you
that would
could
be a good
continue it forever because evil lives on forever, and famine
does.
lives on, and all the bad things that have ever happened, hate, all of it lives on forever, and they're pretty much blaming it all on the devil. I just think that's a fantastic episode, one of my all-time faves. The Howling Man, definitely more of a horrific type of episode, I would say.
Yeah, definitely.
So you got we'll just run through ones we love. If you have ones you hate or overrated, underrated, anything.
I want to talk about the one we had a little bit of a back and forth on because I think my take on it's funny.
Okay.
The one when they go to space to Mars.
People are like all over.
People are like all over. So this episode starts out two astronauts.
Stars Roddy McDowell as one of the two astronauts.
Do you remember their names?
I don't remember. Moccasin was one of them.
I remember. I wrote notes through all of these. I wrote smart guy and tough guy. So
I know Roddy McDowell is the lead, and the other guy's his character's name is Moccasin. Moccasin.
So Moccasin has said this thing before they were about to go off to like the first expedition to Mars. Basically, this is SpaceX.
Yes.
And he says if we find people there, they're going to be like people because God created everyone in His image, so they're probably going to be the same as us. People are alike all over. And then they go into space. Something goes wrong. Plane crashes. Moccasin dies, and turns out people are like that on Mars, but just horribly underdressed. Just like the Greek clothes that they had from the set left over.
And a particular sexy, hot, blonde alien chick, I might add.
Yes, I was rooting for them to get together the whole time. And
me too, for the record.
Am I allowed to say the twist?
Absolutely, yeah. This one we have to. There's no point.
They come in, it's like, oh, we speak your language in our heads because TARDIS logic from Doctor Who.
Oh no, he says you don't even realize it, but you're speaking our language. I always thought, what? Like that was a weird line.
Do you watch Doctor Who?
I do not.
So they explained the same thing, and the show came on like the same era, so I thought that was interesting. So like when the TARDIS is around, it like sends brainwaves, so you hear your language and they hear their language when they talk, so you can communicate with anyone in the world wherever you go, and it saved money on creating new languages.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, it's okay. Yeah, we're gonna go to this. We're gonna get you this house.
Apartment.
We read your mind, so we're just gonna get this place that looks like Earth. And then all of a sudden, he realizes all the doors are locked. And my first thought was, oh God, escape room 2019. And he opens a window, and all these people are outside, and there's a sign on the outside that says like human zoo or something. And
there's bars. He's basically in a zoo.
And then he says like, oh, Moccasin, you were right. People were like all over.
I love that. I love that finish.
I think it would have been better if it was a museum instead of a zoo. And
go into detail. Explain for the listeners.
This is why.
I've heard this.
So money's important. Like if we're both on Mars and we hear, yo, there's a new exhibit at the zoo.
Yo.
It's a person. It looks like the guy across the street. Would you pay money for that? I would pay money to see the architecture, the stuff that they got in his mind, and like have him like frozen as like one of the statues in a museum surrounded by like human things. I think that would be interesting, and as a Martian, I would pay good money to see that.
Why don't you hit up Mr. Peel, Mark, and maybe you can remake it yourself?
I will. I'll tweet him right now.
I want to be Moccasin in it. I just want to be the guy that dies, and then hopefully like have like an off-screen relationship with the hot blonde who you cast as the alien.
Yes. I like how she had like a little bit of like, oh God, what are we doing? in her like face too, because like
she had remorse.
Yeah,
which is, again, it fits with the theme because people are alike everywhere. It's the truth. She felt remorse. There would be somebody, if we took an alien cat, reverse the roles now. Let's say an alien crash landed
that looks
to Earth.
like us. I feel like it would work better if it was like, if we got like the alien from Alien and put that in the cage. I don't think anyone would care. If it looked like exactly like me, exactly like you, put that in the cage. That's when people would start like really doing that, because then you get like the sympathy. Like whatever in the brain that
it's
does
the truth.
Yeah.
You'd have people protesting, you'd have people marching, you'd have people picketing, because there is that remorse factor. And then on the other side, you'd have the same people saying the currency. People are coming to see this. We're making money from this.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with cigarettes. Do they kill you? Do they cause cancer? Do they do all these horrible things? Absolutely.
But you
they
buy
also
it.
make money.
Yeah.
And they also, people buy it gladly, hand over fist, handing money. That's what it is. It's supply and demand. So I always thought that the episode was everything like that. The morals, the currency, the way the government would feel, the way society would feel. I always thought, wow,
it's a good episode, despite my stupid nitpicks. I really enjoyed watching it the whole time.
It is a really.
It's one of those things like I forgot I watched it already, but as soon as he opened the like the curtain, all my like childhood memories came back. Like, oh, I remember this. Yeah, I remember this feeling.
Yeah, dude, I really like People Are Like All Over. I think it's another really, really good one. But going back into one that another one I really enjoy.
All over to you.
I would say a very underrated one. One that people don't talk about. I don't know if I sent this to you on the list. I honestly don't remember any of the ones I sent on the list.
Okay.
But it's entitled The Little People. And no, it is not the show where there was a show I watched in kindergarten called that, but it was nothing like this.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Well, basically, I'll say the plot.
I know. I've seen the episode of that. The thing you watched in kindergarten.
Yeah. I remember they were little like clay figures, but whatever. Basically, for those of you, I know I can just gloss over this one since Mark has not seen it. But
I've seen it, but it's been years, so I'm not going to remember plot points. I know what happens. A, B, C.
Yeah, it's basically Claude Atkins and Joe Morose, and there are these astronauts, and they basically run out of fuel, so they land on this planet, and they're refueling the ship, and Joe Morose in the meantime finds a civilization of people that are no bigger than ants, and basically Joe Morose, he feels that he's always been second in command in his life. So he's the other guy, Claude Atkins, is in charge. He's number two. He was the brother that was neglected. He was the child that was neglected. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like every time.
So like once he found the chance to be God, he was like, taking it. Let's go.
He finally sees somebody that is smaller, more wimpy than he is, and he thinks. Yeah. This has been my dream, you know. I've always had these dreams to. He has this amazing monologue. I can't remember word for word, but he says something like, "I've always wanted to be a gladiator, lying on the bed, having them feed grapes to me. I've always wanted to have people at my feet, waiting on me, hand and foot, and screaming out to the people listening." And like, I always thought, man, that is a really, really cool place to go. Like a dictator type of character that never got this, and it was always his dream. And when he gets it, and I love Claude Atkins trying to talk him out of it. He's like, listen, you're a good guy. Don't do this, man.
Did they show the perspective from like the little people at all? I don't remember.
They don't. They show like it's basically like a mossy. It looks like somebody made like a homemade mossy civilization.
So it was never like. Superimpose two images on top of each other where they see the little guys looking up like, hey,
no.
Okay.
They do that in one called The Fear. They do that, and it's terrible. It did not age well at all. You can hear little voices. You hear, like you hear that,
yeah.
And he goes. They made a statue of me, Fletch. They made it overnight. It's a statue of him, and he goes, "What'd you give them in return, Craig?" And he goes, "What I give them in return, I don't stamp my feet down on their town." He goes, "Because I can do it at any time." And he starts stamping their town, and he pulls a gun on Claude Atkins, and Claude Atkins like, "I'm sorry, buddy, I really am." And I always just thought like, wow, what a surreal idea topic for this character.
It's basically like the story of a bully too. Yeah. Someone who's just been picked on their entire life. They see the first person they see that's a little bit smaller, they take the opportunity to bully, because that's how the cycle of bullying happens. No one wants to just like be done with it. They want to feel what the other person felt.
Yeah, and I always go back to the cookie jar scenario where it's if you deprive a person of something like that their entire life, let's say the proverbial cookie jar, you can't have a cookie, you can't have a cookie, you can't have a cookie, the jar is locked. What's going to happen once somebody turns their back? Can I get 10 more minutes? I'm sorry. Yeah. Hold on. Can I get 10 more minutes? After the 10 minutes, so 20 minutes? Sorry, I'm sorry. This is going so damn well. My producer's throwing a hissy fit.
I feel like I did something, and I'm sorry for whatever.
But going back to the cookie jet reference, once someone's back is turned, that person is going to take all the cookies from the jar. There's going to no happy medium.
There's not going to be a jar.
Exactly.
It's going to be gone.
It's gone. And like it's the tragedy of this character. And Serling says something towards the closing narration that always stuck with me. Probably my favorite closing narration of any of these. He says, in this case, the dream dies a little bit harder than the man. Ooh. Almost saying that the dream of being a dictator, the dream of being weighted on hand and foot is almost bigger than his existence ever even was. And like that just hit me in the feels. I was like, damn, like that's one of my top 10 favorite ones, and I think it is the most underrated episode of this entire series.
I feel that,
absolutely love it. I think it's I totally recommend you give it a watch.
Yeah.
Do you have any? I know we're talking ones we love. If you have more we love, absolutely, we'd love to hear it. Or ones that you think are overrated, underrated, bad, anything.
I have an idea to kill the kid from the I forgot the episode. But
It's a Good Life.
It's a Good Life. I have an idea to
Little
kill
Anthony.
Yeah,
Real
Little
good.
Anthony.
You're making it snow.
He is the best child actor from the 60s I've ever seen.
He's also in another one called Long Distance Call.
Is he like a main character in that one?
Yes. He it's basically his grandmother dies on his birthday, and she gives him a toy telephone, and he's talking to her beyond the grave. And like it's eerie. Like she tells him at one point to kill himself so he'll be with her. It's a really
thanks, Grandma. Yeah, it's a good.
Thanks,
good
Grandma. Yeah, right, man. Like when I seen that, I was like, God damn, this woman just told him to drown himself, man. It's like 6.
That's like 60s censors. I got through that.
Exactly.
That's insane.
That's when people say, "Oh, it's old." That's ahead of its time.
Yeah.
That would not even be tackled today, hardly.
Yeah.
Like it's just there are some things it can be dark at times with this show. But tell me.
So the episode basically all the world is non-existent except for this town because this kid grew up with psychic powers, and the whole town just has to cater to him because if he has a temper tantrum, he's going to send them to the ranch, the farm?
The cornfield.
Cornfield, yeah. They don't come back. So in the episode, he's like, "Hey, that dog out there, he's annoying me." Anthony, what happened to the dog? It stopped barking. I sent him to the cornfield like the others, and it's genuinely just like
Terrifying.
I wouldn't even say terrifying. I was just sad the entire time for everyone involved. I'm like, what do you do? But then I thought of a thing to stop it.
Okay.
So the big climax is happening at the end. It's one of the town members' birthdays, and they're all watching TV, and they're watching like it's a reference to like old school stop motion with like the T-Rex
Dinosaurs.
All you have to say is, little Anthony, those things existed at one time. I bet you can make a time machine right now.
Oh man.
Have him make the time machine, knock him out because I think when in the episode when they try to confront him, one of the members says he can't think about everyone at once. So
somebody sneak up behind him and kill him.
If you can distract him, like theoretically, he can't concentrate. So all you have to do is distract him long enough for one person to get through, go back in time, either kill him as a kid, kill like an ancestor as a kid or something like that. You're done. You just saved all humanity. You're welcome.
Dude, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic idea. They did. I will tell you, I don't know if you know this, they did make a sequel to that episode.
They did.
He's an adult, and it's his daughter, and she's got powers.
Okay.
They're both killing people left and right. It's like a slasher episode.
This episode, I'm not sure if you watched Jessica Jones at all.
I don't.
It reminded me a lot of the villain in that, which is basically a guy who grew up like that. But instead of like doing that, so it's like suggestion powers. So if I said, "Hey, stab yourself 15 times in the neck right now," you'll feel like compelled to do it, and you'll actually do it. It's like he can control minds, and he just grew up without that parental like you can't do this, so he just became a psychopath.
Yeah, and I think that the reason that particular episode really, really works,
it's because it's a kid. Kids are scary.
I think that, and I think the acting from the parents, They all look like just terrified. They're all like, "You'll kill the crops," and then well, it's real good you're doing that, Anthony. It's real good. And like, I think just their performance, their fear that's just written on their faces is so good, man.
It's the expression that a kid can't read.
Yes.
It's the only fear they're allowed to have, because for all the other horrible things this kid does, if you're sad, he sends you away to the cornfields. So everyone has to be happy. Even when he's not around, he's like, the other day I felt someone was sad and wanted to hurt me.
Yeah.
Who was that? And I'm like, I would hate to live in that town. I was walk out into the ethereal plane somewhere.
So damn creepy,
Please.
man. I think It's a Good Life is a phenomenal episode.
Exactly.
Perfect acting. And I would say another one that's more horror than like sci-fi. I would say that's pretty horrific.
Yeah.
I mean, a kid turning people into Jack in the Boxes.
That was terrifying.
Yes, like that's dark, man. I don't know. I always love that one.
Like, little Anthony, you want to turn him? You want to send him to the cornfield already so we can stop looking at this?
A couple more that I find really scary. There are two here. 22, I really, really enjoy. And there's an episode called Come Wander With Me. I don't know.
I saw both of those. 22, they did a similar premise in season 1, right?
What was the episode?
I forget the name of the episode. You didn't have it on the list. I watched it. It was the guy who came into the office like, doctor, every time I fall asleep, I'm on a roller coaster.
Perchance the dream.
I have a heart condition, and if I do it one more time, I'm going to die. It was the same sort of thing. It was like this woman's falling asleep, and she meets a morgue person.
She's in this hospital. She's a stripper. They don't tell you that. They say he's a dancer, but they tease that she's a stripper. Because obviously you couldn't say that back in the 60s. Yeah, well, she's hot as hell, so you could tell why. And she's in this room, and she says, every night I have this terrible nightmare where I walk down to the morgue, room 22, and this creepy nurse, I would love to know if she's still alive, because I would love to meet her and get her autograph.
I'm going to be honest.
I don't know her name. If you have your phone, please look that up.
I'll let you know after it's
excellent, my friend.
And basically, she just looks at her as like, room for one more, darling.
Room for one more, honey. And
honey.
She screams and runs up the elevator. And then Rod's like, portrait of a woman terrified. And like basically this goes on for a while. Yeah. And they tell her, well, do things differently in your dreams so they don't end up turning out the same. And like she knocks over the glass of water, for an example. And this time she's like, I'm not going to grab for the water. She gets up, hits it with her knee, and it still happens. It's almost saying it's inevitable no matter what you do. And I always thought that just this episode, it was shot with a camcorder, actually.
Really?
This was one of the 6 episodes. They had a cut budget in season 2, and they didn't shoot it on film, because all the other Twilight Zones, other than these 6 episodes from season 2, were shot on film.
How early in the season was it with season 2? Was these?
They actually scattered it. Night of the Meek, Static, The Whole Truth, 22. Like those were.
Oh yeah. Because I remember being annoyed that this was season 2, episode called 22, but it was episode 17.
Yeah.
Come on, my OCD, you're hurting.
I think it's just everybody who's had a nightmare can a recurring nightmare too.
I've never had a recurring nightmare. All my nightmares have been one shot, just like
one shot,
wake up screaming a little bit. I've never had that fear, and I feel like that's a good representation of what it is.
Absolutely.
Waking up every day to Dr. Smith being like, hey, it's okay. That's really scary.
Yeah, man. I was terrified by this one. I think it's one of the scariest ones. I love it. I don't want to give away the ending because it's fantastic. Although I will say, Final Destination kind of ripped this one off.
And I'd have to say the other way around.
I know, Mark. Mark is a clown, ladies and gentlemen. But this is why we love Mark.
I am telling the truth.
I know, and the truth shall set you free.
This episode from 1960s ripped off the plot for Final Destination. That was based on the X-Files, but we're not going to talk about that.
Did you ever realize that the Final Destination, the airport, is JFK Airport?
Yeah, it's all on Long Island, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always thought that was the scariest thing. Like I never realized. I was like, dude, I've been in that airport.
Was it filmed on Long Island though?
Jeez, I don't know.
I would love to like drive by the house that exploded in Final Destination, because I do that a lot with the Amityville Horror House. Like every month or so, I'll go past drive it and be like, oh look, what's in there?
Yeah, man. The other one that scares me to death is called Come Wander With Me, and
I don't think that was scary as much as it was just like interesting seeing horror from like the music producer perspective. because I like the mindset of someone who's so high up like in his life that he doesn't understand that I can just say these words, and because they're royalty free, he can buy it off of me.
Yeah,
I thought that like that character was interesting.
Yeah, it's an interesting episode because I will say it's the Twilight Zone that is like none other, because there really is no moral message. It really does not make the most sense.
It has a moral.
What would you say the moral is?
I'd say the moral is you can't expect to go to a small town being like, hey, give me your music now, and not expect to die at the end.
Yeah.
You gotta realize your boundaries and sort of make your own art if you want to be an artist, and don't steal from others. I feel like that was the moral.
Yeah, I hold on, I'm just fixing this live stream camera here.
Okay.
After an hour it cuts, so I had to restart.
You looking good?
Oh, I'm looking good, baby. But I always thought this one's just creepy, man, because like you hear this beautiful song, which I will play in the outro here from the lovely Bonnie Beecher.
He's got it all set up.
Come wander with me. Oh, I came in yesterday. Mark, I take this show so seriously. I wish if I could get paid to do this, I would do it every day for the rest of my life. I love
Tyler,
it.
go throw some money at us now.
I love it, man. I wish. Oh, no worries. Nothing. Leave Tyler alone. Let Tyler sleep. Let
I
Tyler
wasn't
sleep.
asleep. I literally just had my head on the table.
Oh, okay. I felt bad. I thought Matt woke you up.
No, it's okay. What happened? I feel like I did hear
he
my
said he
name.
wanted to get paid, and I assumed you had money.
No, I said if I could do this show for the rest. I said if I could do this show for the rest of my life and get paid, I would do it. And he's like, Tyler, pay up. I was like, why are you making Tyler pay me, man? He's my producer. He's the reason I even get to do this show.
I looked up and this is the first thing I saw. So I'm like, he probably has money.
I have no money.
That's the joke of it all.
Yeah, he probably has money. I have no money.
Yeah, that's the joke of it
Except
all.
the butterflies in my wallet.
Now the moths fly out.
Not even. They have like the suitcases. Are like, yeah. This place isn't good enough. I gotta get out of here.
Yeah, this isn't working for me.
Yeah. But yeah, like I remember, I actually have a funny story from the first time I watched this one. I remember we were going to a party that night. Like it was somebody was throwing a big high school party. I remember being really excited for it, and I was on Netflix at the time, and I saw this episode. And I was like, I've never seen this one, so I put it on, and like about 10 minutes in, I was hooked. I'm like, damn, this is creepy. The song, the weird atmosphere to it, I think Bonnie Beecher's performance is just wonderfully terrifying and creepy.
Yeah.
And I remember at the end, I was so damn creeped out that I didn't end up going out that night. I remember my friends calling me being like, bro, we're coming to pick you up. And I was like, dude, I ain't leaving. I'm freaked out right now. Like, I didn't go to the party. I was so taken back by this episode because it's slightly off and it's slightly removed from the rest of the series. And the crazy tidbit I found out, it was the last one shot.
Oh, I knew that.
Series.
I knew that. Yeah.
The last one.
Was it the last? I don't think it was the last like episode one, but I knew it was the last one I saw, and I.
It was the last episode ever recorded. So it was directed by Richard Donner of all people, who went up to direct Superman, Superman 2, Lethal Weapon, The Goonies. Like Richard Donner made so many classic movies, and he also directed the William Shatner episode, which gets all the fame and prize and whatever. Whereas I think this episode is actually even more terrifying, just because of the creepy atmosphere.
I think it is just because they use music well. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So basically, the thing he wants the song so he can take and just make money and scam all these small town people, but all the things from the song are happening to him as like
in real life.
The lone wanderer coming into the town, taking the girl. Then everyone gets mad, and as it's happening, the tape will just start playing, and he's ripping out the record or however old things worked back in the day, and it's still playing, and it's that creeps me out.
Oh my god, yeah, they're recording the song, and he throws it over here, and a verse comes on the record that she hadn't even sung yet, and he's like, how did that get on the tape?
And it was like, you killed Bonnie Clyde,
Billy Rayford.
Yeah,
and I like she's throughout the entire episode, you see him walking and talking to her, and then there's it looks like the same actress but in black, like she's in mourning, like she's watching the whole thing unfold. Creepy, and nothing like any other episode.
I saw that like, because the moment like that's finally like revealed, like the all black, she's saying like, you have to stay with me. And
Don't run, stay with me this time. Maybe it'll be different.
Oh no, you can't run from death.
You can't cheat death, my friend. And like that's one I always just found really underrated. I would say, yeah. So I said the one that I think is most underrated. I would say this is one of the scarier ones. This and 22 I think are very scary episodes. But we have about 6 minutes or so to go.
Okay.
Give me one more, my friend.
I'll do a quick one, and I wanted to say
and then the plot.
Yeah. Horse noises. The dad joke one. To serve man.
Oh, To Serve Man, my dad's personal favorite. 5 minutes. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
And number 1 on IMDb, we learned out today.
Yes, the highest rated Twilight Zone episode.
I meant to say learned out, by the way. I meant to say that. so basically, Alien. This is like the more realistic, in my opinion, than the we're all the same people episode.
Yeah.
Like aliens come down and they're like, oh, we are here to serve you. We want to make your life better. We're going to put up like invisible walls so you guys stop fighting with each other. We're going to tell you how to build like crops in the middle of the Sahara deserts so you can populate everything. And also, we're going to let some of you come with us to see our planet. Mm-hmm. And right away, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. But people did it. And
that's true because mindless people would follow the new thing.
It's one of those things like, oh, it's the new fad. You can tell by all the people doing it. They're all like the well-dressed people. Like, oh,
100%.
My sister just went the other day. She called me. She said it's so amazing over there. They got sky. The sky is
They got
blue.
jacuzzis.
Yeah.
They have food. Great
and
food.
And as the main character is going up, which is my favorite dad joke now, the main character was like what's the word for it? The science that he does? Like cryptology?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, so he was deciphering the book that left behind that said, we are here to serve man. And his assistant or a coworker comes roaming up as he's going on the plane. And she's like, stop. No, we mistranslated it. It's not to serve man as in we're going to be happy and like serve you. It's a cookbook.
And my dad, I remember my dad always telling me that the hair on the back of his neck stood up when he first heard that. Because if you hear that in 1961, that these people are going to be eaten, and he says something. He says something to him like, "Please eat, Mister whatever his name is. We wouldn't want you to lose weight.
We wouldn't want you to."
And Serling's closing narration of when you go from being the top of the food chain to an ingredient in someone's soup. I love that.
Yeah.
Like, that's legendary, man. It's creepy as hell.
I feel like, as much as like I make fun of the twist, I think that's the best twist in Twilight Zone.
It's fantastic. My dad's favorite episode, probably, and a lot of people would herald it as one of the best.
I know you know things. Do you know the
Thank you.
The guy who played the main alien? Because
yes,
is he actually that tall? Or
yes, he is. Yes, he is. His name is Richard. I can't think of his damn last name. He also was in the earlier James Bond films as the Jaws character, one of the James Bond heels. Richard something.
Was that him?
That is the same guy.
Oh my God.
Richard, I can't think of his damn last name. Somebody on here will tell me. And also before, when I couldn't get Michael Rooker. I got it.
Don't you love when it just comes at you?
Yes. I'm glad it came because I would have been furious. Michael Rooker is Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer. But To Serve Man, absolute all-time classic. My dad's favorite one. And I think again, it's a very good twist. I agree with you.
I don't know what else to say. It's just a good episode, good twist.
Absolutely. We got 2 minutes to go here. I want Mark, my good friend Mark, wants to promote.
Hi.
It's horror related.
It is horror related. I'm gonna put this on my head to show it's horror related. I am a part of a haunted house, Chamber of Horrors. It's in Hauppauge, and I got a text.
Chamber of Secrets.
8 minutes ago, basically, from my boss saying we have 3 new haunted attractions this year. The first one has to do with possessed dolls. Second haunt has to do with Satanism and old school witches, as you do. And the third haunt is very ambitious, putting guests outdoors this time, which we've never done before. We're usually an indoor haunts. And this is going to be complete with snow and moonlight. And when I read that for the first time, I screamed a little bit. Auditions are going to start in May. So if you're interested in horror and you want to get a little bit more into the acting side of horror, I suggest coming down. You don't really need to know a lot about the audition process. You just go in and make friends and try to do your best, and I'm sure you'll be doing fine. That's basically what I did. I came in, I was like, hey, this is what I do, not thinking I would get in. I got in 4 years later. I'm still doing it. If you want to find out more information, you can go to chamberofhorrorsny.com and also visit our Facebook page at Chamber of Horrors NY. Like the page all that fun stuff. And thank you for having me on.
Hey,
this was really fun.
Absolutely, my friend. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on.
Take this off my head.
Give me that Come Wander With Me, Matt. I love my listeners. Too sweet, guys. I'll be back next week. Friday 13th, 2-part retrospective.
Is it Friday the 13th?
Too sweet. No, it's just the episode.
Friday 13th. I was excited.
Rock on, listeners.
Peace.
He said, come